What you're looking at in front of you right there is Tesla stock, Palantir stock, and Sofi stock. These stocks have been complete dead money for the past 4 months. This is a look at the past 4-month performance of these three stocks. Tesla stock's down about 8% in the past 4 months, while Palantir is down about 10% in the past 4 months, and Sofi stock is down nearly 17 percentage points in the past 4 months. Now, this is all while the market is anything but dead. The market's very alive. The Nasdaq's up about 4% in the past 4 months. The S&P 500's up over 5 percentage points in the past 4 months. Nvidia stock, the one everybody talks about on Wall Street all the time, that stock is up 61% in the past 4 months. And so the market's not dead and Nvidia is not dead, but yet these stocks are not doing too well, right? All three of these stocks I hold in the public count. Tesla stock is a position I have in the public count. It's a rather big position. Palantir is a pretty good sized position. It's one of my 6-figure positions in that portfolio, right? And then I have Sofi stock also in there, a newer position for me overall, right? So all three of these stocks do definitely matter to me. So will Sofi, Tesla, and Palantir remain dead money for the next 6 months? Is there anything that can shake these stocks much higher over the next 6 months, the remainder of this year? And if you know me and you watch my channel, which I'm sure most of you guys watch my channel on basically an everyday basis or almost an everyday basis, right? You know I'm always talking about the long term with stocks, right? Talking about the future year, 3 years, 5 years, 7 years for companies. But for today's video specific, I really just want to focus on the next 6 months for these stocks and talk about, are these stocks dead money for the remainder of this year specifically, okay? And we'll go all into detail in regards to that. Hope you guys enjoy this video here today. I thought it was a perfect video to do here today. All I ask in return is that you hit that like button and you make sure you're subscribed to the channel. It takes you less than 5 seconds. You could be doing it right now. It's all I ask in return for doing this video here today for you guys. I appreciate each and every one of you. The pinned comment down there today, I'll put 1000xstocks.com as the pinned comment. If you're looking to apply for access to my service there, you can. That's our software that goes all into all the metrics in regards to stocks, figuring out if you're getting ripped off on a stock, if you're getting a great deal on a stock, conference call access, transcript access, plus so much more. I'll put that as a pinned comment down there today, okay? So before we even get into these three stocks, there's something very important I got to explain to everybody. These stocks all trade at higher valuations. All three of these we're discussing here today, Palantir, Tesla, and Sofi. Not only do they all trade at higher forward PEs, right? But additionally, they're all what is known as high growth companies. High growth companies are companies that are growing their top line and their bottom line double-digit percentage most years. It doesn't mean every single year. They could have a fluke year here and there where they might not grow double digits, but these companies almost every single year are, double-digit type growers, especially on their top lines, significant revenue growth. Now, in regards to these companies, they can get red hot and they can get ice cold, okay? So that's just important. Everybody understands these can be very, very volatile stocks overall, and the stories can change quickly, okay? Let's get into Palantir first. You're up first, Palantir, okay? I thought we'd start with Palantir, and the reason is, if you want to talk about the best of the opportunities for the next 6 months or so, we're going to start with Palantir, okay? So here we go. Palantir. So there's a lot of ways, and this is what I really like about Palantir, there's a lot of ways that could get this stock really moving significantly, okay? First one up here is in regards to their numbers. There could be some nice upside pressure to these numbers overall. If you look at what's expected on the EPS side, very conservative numbers over this next couple quarters, 8 cents for this upcoming quarter they'll report, and then as far as the guided out quarter, 8 cents as well for that quarter. We know Palantir is making a fortune from treasuries. We know additionally the company is potentially doing share buybacks, right? We don't know how much. They've done very little so far, but they might take some shares off the market, right? We also know the company's been keeping stock-based compensation pretty in check, which has been very impressive, right? So if you're expecting some insane move up in terms of stock-based compensation, doesn't look super realistic, which that definitely helps the EPS. Additionally, revenue could come in better than expected. If revenue comes in better than expected, that could help out earnings per share as well, right? So you have all these various factors here, and we do know the company's now has a very nice operating income that keeps building quarter after quarter after quarter. So there could be potential upside in these EPS numbers here, which then would make the forward P not look nearly as high as it is, which means people would likely say, oh, Palantir is actually going to be far more profitable than we thought it was going to be, right? Now, in regards to our revenue numbers, there's definitely potential upside here when you look at what AIP is bringing in, when you look at how much excitement that's bringing in for the company, right? And then you think about it in terms of the government business, which has really been a lagging business for the company. The government numbers are getting very, very exciting now. When it comes to specifically the last couple months, and some of these deals that are announced are massive. I mean, just very recently, we've seen, $700 million plus in deals go through. So all that's going to start coming to fruition in terms of revenue numbers over the next couple quarters here. So there might be upside to these revenue estimates here, and might even be more potential upside to the earnings per share estimates right there, okay? Now, additionally, look at that market capitalization. That market cap on this company is just under $50 billion. So Palantir, you can't really call this a little tiny company anymore. It's not that anymore. The company is now a pretty large organization. Well, we're talking about a $50 billion market cap on this company. Now, the reason I'm showing you that number there is not just to point out and illustrate like Palantir is a bigger company. The reason I'm showing you that there is because it's very important to understand how this could impact how Palantir's stock price is going to move over this next 6 months. And here's why. So, if you haven't heard, there's a pretty good probability that Palantir gets in the S&P 500 at some point in the back half of the year. It is not a guarantee, but it's a pretty good probability. Now, when it comes to what are the criteria to get in the S&P 500, one of the big things is market cap. You've got to have a market cap of at least $8 billion to get in. Obviously, Palantir's 5x plus over that number, right? So they're if anything, their market cap's really, really large compared to, many companies that might get into the S&P 500. Also, you must be listed on a U.S. exchange. They got that, so that's a check, right? Structure of the company must be based in the U.S., check. Earnings, a company must have positive reported earnings in its most recent quarter, check. And on a trailing 12-month basis, which is over the past 4 quarters, check as well. And then liquidity is fine in regards to Palantir as well. So Palantir has now checked all these boxes off. And so now it's just a tick, tick, tick situation. It's just a matter of time. And I think there's going to probably be quite a bit of pressure on the folks that make this decision over this next few months to get Palantir into the S&P 500. And if that does happen, you're going to likely see a major move up in Palantir stock price once the announcement happens, right? Because a lot of people are going to try to front run the fact that, because once you get into the S&P 500, basically there's a ton of forced buying that has to happen because of the way index funds work, right? Index funds have to distribute money all around. So if you're talking about a new stock comes in the S&P 500, it's almost a guarantee, unless the market just crashes right after that, it's almost a guarantee your stock price is going to go up quite significantly over the coming months after you get in the S&P 500. So a lot of people say, let me front run this, right? So once that announcement comes out, they go ahead, buy up the stock, boom, pushes up the stock into that inclusion, right? Then the inclusion happens. All the index funds in big money is forced to basically buy the stock, right? And so it's just kind of a beautiful situation. As long as the company's numbers don't fall apart during that time period, and as long as there's not some major stock market crash, it's a beautiful cycle for the stock price, right? This happened at Tesla many years ago. We all witnessed that, right? I was a shareholder during that time, and it was a very fun time, right? Now, during that time period, valuations can get put to very silly numbers, and that might happen in regards to Palantir, but there's no doubt if this announcement comes and then we get that, there's no doubt in my mind that the move up for the stock price would be pretty significant. And if you look, I would say there's a pretty decent probability Palantir gets in the back half of this year. It's just a question of what month they get in, right? Now, another thing that could move Palantir's stock price in a major upward direction is if they have some epic companies that they can name drop over this next 3 to 6 months. And when I say epic companies, it's not like General Mills and CVS and Aramark and these sorts of companies are necessarily bad companies to be name dropping. I think those are great companies to be name dropping. But if Palantir has a world famous company that is world respected in a major way that they announce as a major customer in this next 3 to 6 months, that could completely change the future of Palantir, because people will look at that and really say, wow, Palantir's really got it if they get one of these type of companies. So let me give you a few examples of the type of companies that if Palantir announced these sorts of companies, huge game changer for the stock price almost immediately, okay? Tesla, SpaceX. There's been rumors about Tesla potentially using Palantir Foundry in the past. I haven't been able to find anything confirmed around that. But if they announce like Tesla is using Foundry for this or that, right? Or using AIP for this or that, or SpaceX, or both, like the branding that would come from that is massive. Because we know those are two insanely famous companies that are obviously very well respected in the financial market. So if you got a name like that, what if a Costco came out? What if Costco came out and announced they're going to become a major customer of Foundry, AIP, and what they have going on there, right? I mean, my gosh, a company like that, people would say, oh my gosh, I mean, Costco is one of the most loved stocks in the entire stock market. Plus, it's obviously such a famous company and so well run that if people said, oh my gosh, somebody like a Costco is using Palantir, it's a game changer. It's a game changer in terms of the amount of respect Palantir would get out there. Plus, that would funnel through a lot more deals for Palantir overall. A company like McDonald's, right? And you imagine McDonald's comes out, says they're using, Palantir for all their franchise locations or corporate locations, or for, keeping track of supply chains on a much higher level, like anything like that. These are sorts of companies I talk about that if they name drop some of these sorts of companies, like McDonald's, Costco, Tesla, SpaceX, game changers for the stock price pretty much immediately, okay? So, to recap the potential upsides here for the next 6 months for Palantir, then we'll get into Sofi and Tesla. If there's upside in numbers, that's going to help out immensely. If these numbers are too low, these analyst estimates, which by the way, analyst estimates from what I've seen, they've been creeping up. So there's a little creep going on there. But if there's even more upside there than what analysts are at, that's going to be huge for the company. Second thing is, if there's S&P 500 inclusion, massive. If they name drop some epic customer, huge, okay? Game changer for the stock. So the way I would think about it is, if one of these three scenarios happen here over the next few months, I think the stock likely moves to 25 plus. If two of these happen, I think we're going 30 plus. So let's say, there's S&P 500 inclusion plus there's upside in numbers here, we're probably going to 30 plus. If all three happen, I think we're going at all-time highs. If we get a huge name drop from a super famous company that is insanely well respected, plus S&P 500 inclusion, plus there's upside in numbers across the board, EPS and revenue, things are better than analysts out there expected, we're probably going to new all-time highs on this stock. And so Palantir definitely is, of these three stocks, that's the one I look at and I'm like, man, that has the most realistic possibilities to really make some pretty incredible moves for the remainder of this year, okay? So that covers Palantir. Oh, by the way, let me just, because you might say, what if none of those situations happen? What if none of those three happen, okay? Which, by the way, that's fair. Like, let's say there's no upside in numbers. They just come in and report what analysts are expecting, right? Let's also say there's no S&P 500 inclusion for the remainder of this year. And let's say there's no huge epic, whoa, Palantir just signed who? They signed Costco as a customer, McDonald's, what? Tesla? Like, let's say there's no huge name dropper. I think in that situation, the stock price probably just flounders in the $19 to $23 range. And I think that in that situation, if none of those three happen, we're probably just, stuck as kind of a dead money stock right now, not really doing much. Today, I believe, yesterday the stock was like $21. Today, I think the stock's $22. But yeah, I think if none of those three happen, we'll just remain in this kind of dead money territory overall for Palantir, okay? Now, Tesla, next up. Dead money. Okay, now, by the way, Tesla's been dead money for a lot longer than the last 4 months. It's been honestly dead money for like the last pretty much like 3 years, if not 4 years, okay? So that's just a little food for thought in regards to that one, okay? First off, we do have a positive here that's going to happen in regards to Tesla. It is a positive, okay? And the funny thing about this positive is it's not even like this is necessarily like something Tesla's going to do, but we're about to go in election season. So B-Man and T-Man are going to be on the hate train for the next 4 to 5 months from the media. And it depends on what side, obviously, people are playing on. If they're playing on one side, they're going to hate one of the guys. You got to know that. And they're going to be trying to come up with every negative article about them. If it's on the other side, they're going to be doing the opposite thing, right? And so being that we're got a debate, I believe, coming up here very soon, and then, it's just, you get closer and closer to election. Those guys are really going to be the focus. They're going to be what grabs attention. And so Elon Musk might actually get a break from all this negativity from the media he gets pretty much consistently and constantly. I mean, Elon Musk, we know, was a very beloved figure up until about 2 or 3 years ago when he started, going a certain political route, and then he bought X, obviously, which was known as Twitter, and everything changed for him very, very negatively. And now he gets covered on a negative basis pretty much on a daily basis, right? So, but the moral of the story is he is going to get a break a little bit for a bit, right? Next thing up here, Elon Musk has to, this is what I talk about when I talk about the media really always going after Elon, and also maybe Elon deserves it sometimes, right? I think sometimes it's way overblown, sometimes he might deserve it. So for instance, an article like this broke here today on CNBC. Elon Musk ordered NVIDIA to ship thousands of AI chips reserved for Tesla to X and his AI company. It's just not a good look. It's not a good look, okay? When things like that come out, not a good look. Emails written by NVIDIA senior staff and widely shared inside the company suggest that Elon Musk presented an exaggerated picture of Tesla's procurement to shareholders. Correspondence from NVIDIA staffers also indicate that Musk diverted a sizable shipment of AI processors that had been reserved for Tesla to his social media company X, formerly known as Twitter. By ordering NVIDIA to privately held X to basically jump ahead of Tesla to get the chips, right? Musk pushed back the automaker's receipt of more than $500 million in graphic processing units, or GPUs, by months, likely adding to delays in setting up supercomputers Tesla says it needed to develop autonomous vehicles and humanoid robots. Quote, Elon Musk prioritizing X H100 GPU cluster deployment at X versus Tesla by rediverting 12,000 of the shipped H100 GPUs originally slated for Tesla to X instead, as NVIDIA memo said in December. In exchange, the original X orders of 12,000 H100 slated for January and June redirected to Tesla, right? So I'm assuming it's the truth, right? Yeah, it could be a lie, but I'm assuming it's the truth. First off, it's not a huge deal. It's like a month, but it's not a good look. That's just a bottom line. It's like, Elon Musk has to stop doing anything that makes people think that he cares more about these other companies than he cares about Tesla. That's a bottom line. Something like this, it's just not a good look. There's already a lot of shareholders in regards to Tesla, or people that want to hold the stock that are just looking at this, and they already feel like Elon is caring more about his other projects and other companies, specifically X, more than he cares about what's going on with Tesla. And when a story drops like this, it's just not a good look. If you're going to give some of these chips that should be used for Tesla over to X, it's not a good look, right? So if we can get Elon Musk to just, don't do any more of this crap, and don't, then we're talking. That could definitely help out the stock, because I can tell you, so a story like this breaking, it only has one effect. It's only negative. There's no way you can flip this into a positive. It's only a negative, right? And so, little food for thought in regards to that. Next up here, if Tesla's going to get this stock moving, we're going to get out of dead money territory. We got to beat, and then, the team's really got to promise for better numbers and what's expected here, right? This current quarter, revenues are expected to be down 3%, very disappointing. So we got to get those numbers back in the right direction. EPS, revenue, right? That's very important. If we can have that happen, then we can really talk about the stock accelerating, right? But there's something way bigger than this, that could affect the stock very positively in the next 6 months and really get these shares moving again. Next thing you know, it's $200, $250 stock. And that is this right here. So margins have been going down and going down and going down for the company. Look at the trailing 12-month operating margin, obviously significantly moved down from where it topped basically at the end of 2022, right? And then as far as gross margin, obviously topped way back, this trailing 12-month gross margin topped way back in 2022. And on a trailing 12-month basis, it's just gone down, down, down. If we can just talk about margins have stopped going down and they're going to go up and up and up from here, that's going to completely change how people look at this company, as because people are still looking at Tesla as a company with margins that are going down, right? And no one really wants to hold stocks, at least in the short-term perspective, where their margins are going down and down and down. Their operating margins are gross margins. So if we can get this company to have bottomed out gross margins and operating margins, and it only gets better from here over the next many quarters, I think that also stops the fall in the stock price and the kind of, bad price action in regards to this. And I think you'll start to see upward momentum, because then Tesla becomes a story about, their gross margins are going to keep getting better. Their operating margins are going to keep getting better. They're going to get back to where they used to be, right? Of gross margins 25% plus, of operating margins, 14% plus. There's a big difference between your operating margin being down 7 to 8%, right? Area versus operating margins of 14, 15, 16%. So if that can happen, boom, you're talking about big upward move in the stock, okay? Next up here, August 8th, it's a big day, right? That's the day that they're supposed to show off the super taxi, right? The future. No, I think this is massive for the stock price. And the reason being is this is something that can finally get everybody's focused on what are this quarter's numbers? Are they going to beat? Are they going to miss? Everybody's just focused on the quarter right now. That's very negative when you're a growth stock. Like when you're a growth stock, if you're going to talk about upward momentum, people got to be thinking about the future. Where's this company at a year from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, 7 years from now, right? What are they doing? What do their numbers look like then? If everybody's just focused on the quarter, it's not great for you, right? When you're a growth company specific. So this is a big day. So here's what needs to happen in my opinion. First off, the main robo-taxi, I think, this is my opinion, okay? For them to really knock it out of the ballpark and get everybody incredibly excited about this, I think it's got to be 2 seats. I think you got to be able to fit 2 suitcases in it. I think it's got to be under $20,000. No steering wheel in the car, and a 200-mile battery. Do I think they could do all that? I do think they could do all that. I do think they could hit that price point of under $20,000, right? And remember, when it comes to robotaxi, it's not necessarily like Tesla's going to need to make a fortune on these things. And the reason they're not going to need to make a fortune on these things is because they should have the whole operating system to make the services revenue on it, right? So if they can still make a decent margin, which let's say total cost in regards to this, could Tesla make this in a year or two from now for $14,000, right? I think they could. Here's why, okay? A 200-mile battery, I mean, this little thing with 2 seats in it, like they could get that easy with the way their battery technology's improved over time. Like I think you wouldn't have to go that crazy with the amount of batteries in it because it's so small, right? You don't have all the costs associated with steering wheels and all the other complex mechanisms there, right? And when it comes to the software side, that's basically free. Like they put that in every Tesla, right? It's just straight profit. 2 seats, you cut down on costs massively versus having back seats and everything associated with that as well. And to be able to then fit, 2 suitcases in it, you're not going to need the car to have all the complicated heating and cooling like many cars would have that have back seats, right? Because if you're talking about them having back seats, you got to have AC back there. You got to have, obviously you got to have heating back there as well. Many times Tesla in their back seats of their cars, they also put heating coils to heat the seats as well, right? I mean, all that stuff adds up cost and cost and cost, right? And so for Tesla, this is like the ultimate minimalistic vehicle that is like, I just need to go from here down to that restaurant over there. Get me there, right? I need to go from here to the airport. I need to go here from the grocery store and, come pick me up in the next 3 minutes and, I'm on my way, right? That's what we're talking about. And so I don't think it's crazy at all to imagine Tesla will be able to assemble these things total cost out the door for probably $14,000 max. And then they could sell it for probably like $19,900. And I think these things would sell like hotcakes. So I think they need to show off that, right? That's the big one. That's what most people will take, because most people, when they drive, look at any highway, look at anybody driving on the road. Most people are driving with 2 people or just themselves. That's it, okay? And then they need to show off something like this as well, an 8-seat vehicle. This is for if you got a big family, you got a bunch of people you're going with, right? You got a bunch of suitcases. That's more of a complex ride. You can book up one of those, right? And then that way they covered their bases, right? They got the small robotaxi, which is going to be the huge volume one. That's actually going to be what most people take. But then they also have something much more complicated or I don't want to say, it's not like it's going to be that much more complex. It's just a lot bigger, right? Obviously, it will be a lot more expensive as well when it comes to something like that, but that will be for like bigger parties and things like that, right? Eight seats in it, 8 suitcases. So if they show off both of those, I think it's a game changer for the stock, because then people can really start getting excited about the future again. They can start running projections on how many of these things they'll sell in 2026 and how many they'll sell in 2027 and 2028 and 2029, right? And people can start running with their imaginations. So that would affect the stock price very positively, even in the short term, because it'd be extremely, extremely exciting, right? And so, yeah, that's huge. That's huge. That's what's got to happen there, right? Sofi. So, Sofi. This is a tough one. I'll be honest with you guys. A very tough one. It's a tough one to get any major short-term momentum in. And here, so, I mean, if they could come out and report better numbers than expected, I think that would help the stock price. If they could come out and hit better EPS numbers, which is a realistic possibility, I think, for them. I mean, analysts have them basically having no EPS for this current quarter we're in, and then only 3 cents for the next couple quarters. I think they can hit better profit numbers in that, right? I think another big thing for the numbers would be if they could confirm double-digit revenue growth. Because look at where analysts have, a few quarters from now. They have 5% revenue there, 5.7%. If people can become confident that SoFi is not going down those single digits and is going to remain a double-digit grower, I think that definitely helps the stock price. But the issue with SoFi is, and this is why it's such a tough one, is what really needs to happen is not even in their control. It's nice if there's certain things you can do that are in your control, right? And for Palantir, there's several things that they could do that's in their control. With SoFi, it's not really in their control here in the short term. What's really needed is, one, people got to become confident inflation's done. And the reason they got to become confident inflation's done is because then they'll say there's no more rate hikes on the table, right? And there's no more worrying about higher for longer. What also needs to happen is interest rates have to go lower, right? People do not like many of these financial institutions, especially any of the riskier ones, which SoFi would be grouped into the riskier ones. It hasn't been around as long. It hasn't been a public company as around, right? I mean, at the end of the day, anything outside of really like Goldman Sachs and like JP Morgan gets put in the riskier category in regards to this. So being that SoFi gets grouped in with the riskier crowd, the regional banks and those sorts of things, right? Rates have to go lower in order for people to feel comfortable investing in these sorts of stocks, right? Third thing that needs to happen is the economy has got to be doing better than it's been doing, right? Clearly we've seen major weakness from small business optimism. Clearly we've seen major weakness from consumer confidence, right? So, we've seen some guidance numbers that are a little worrisome. We've seen some very large companies reporting revenues that are going negative for them on a year-over-year basis. So the economy's got to get better. So the moral of the story is, how realistic are those? Well, inflation, I think inflation is in my opinion, people shouldn't even be focused on inflation anymore. They should actually be worrying about what's likely coming 6 months and 12 months from now, which is a complete opposite of inflation. So inflation, I don't think that's really the worry. I think you'll get lower and lower numbers over the next few months, as long as we don't see some major bull cycle in commodities or something like that, right? So I don't think inflation's the issue. Rates going lower, yes, but we still are likely waiting a little bit before any dramatic changes in rates, right? So if you think there's going to be a dramatic rate change in rates like anytime soon, I wouldn't get too excited about that, right? And then when it comes to the economy, are things likely to get massively better in the short term for the economy? I don't know. I'm not 100% convinced of that, right? And so that's where it makes it tough for SoFi stock to really get moving, get out of this kind of dead money area that it's been in, right? Is because it doesn't even control what could really affect the stock very positively in the short term, at least, right? So that is what it is for the moment in time we're in, right? Now, it's important to understand in regards to this, right, is you don't want to get too caught up into, the short-term stuff, right? We know the short-term stuff is what it is, right, in regards to these stocks. But at the end of the day, the next 6 months for these stocks, it's going to come and go fast. 6 months is going to fly by. You're going to be like, whoa, 6 months already flew by. At the end of the day, the next 6 years matter a whole lot more for these stocks. SoFi, Tesla, and Palantir. Where are these companies at 6 years from now? That's what really matters, right? If I look at like the public account, for example, the public account, 6 years ago, I believe it was under $100,000. Under $100,000 is a $2 million plus account now, right? So it's at a whole different area, a whole different stratosphere in regards to that. A lot can change in 6 years. 6 months, if SoFi's $10 or $6, does it make all the difference in the world? No. As long as SoFi's $20 or $30 or $40 a few years from now, that's what really matters, right? As long as Palantir is $50 or $100 a share a few years from now, that's what really matters. Is it 25 or 30 or 20 6 months from now? I'm not sure so much it matters, right? So just a little food for thought in regards to that I think is very important for everybody to understand out there, okay? All right, guys, appreciate y'all joining me as always. Thanks so much for being here. 1000xstocks.com, that is my premium software service. That will be the pinned comment down there if you want to go ahead and apply for access to that. Much love and have a great day.